Hello and welcome to this webinar on how to turn busy into productive in 2024. My name is Moira Dunn and my business is beproductive.ie, and I'm here to share some productivity and time management tips with you. Delighted to be with you on this last Friday of January as we move forward into 2024. So the aim is to do some introductions, say hello, share some productivity and time management tips with you on SlideShare, take your questions, and if you're watching this on record, you're welcome to send any questions through to me. I'm always delighted to hear your specific questions and give you some tips that would be useful for you. And then I'll also be talking to you about some resources that you can access after this webinar. As I mentioned, we're on the last weekend of January, and it has been a long month, hasn't it? It always is, and it seems to go on for about 5 or 6 weeks. We still have a few days left before we get into February, but it is the last weekend, so we're beginning to move towards the next month of the year. And it is a good time to look forward and to look at your ways of working. And February is a good time to start embedding some good habits and maybe making some changes and trying to get them to stick. January is a challenging month. It's hard to really put new things in place because we are coming out of the holiday period. We might be finishing things off from the end of last year. It can actually be a demotivating time to try and start those resolutions or goals that you have. So if you've maybe tried a few things and started them and they didn't quite work out, February is another chance to reset and start again. So this webinar is very timely because hopefully some of the tips I'm going to share with you you'll be able to implement from the first week of February. And I always feel it's a good time to make a fresh start. My name is Moira Dunn, and I've just shared a slide here with some of my background, in case you're wondering who you're listening to. And my focus is all around productivity and well-being because the two are so connected and linked. And I've a lot of broad experience in my background, but my aim has always been to work with people and help them do their job better, to enable them to draw out the skills and strengths that are there, and to give people some really practical tips and pointers and resources to help them get the most from their time. Nearly everybody I work with puts a huge effort into their job, into their life in general, and it's really about just applying a few techniques and a focus to help people get more and get the important things done from their efforts, and also to keep those stress levels down because that has such a huge impact on our well-being and our work-life balance. Why are we talking about productivity? Well, because it is a challenging topic and we all work in very busy work environments. In fact, our lives in general are very busy, but particularly in our work or our studies, it's a day that's often very filled with lots of different activities. So it would be great if we had our list of things we wanted to do. We went into our workplace, we chatted to people, but by and large, we were left to ourselves to do our own work. That's not reality for a lot of people because there are meetings, calls, requests. You've got notifications on Teams and all your different devices and apps. They form distractions. We've got all our emails as well. And you will have people interrupting you, calling you, asking you to do things. And there's a lot of things that happen throughout that day. So it tends to be very distracted, very busy, and it can be really hard to focus in and get some productivity, productive things done and have some productive hours. Those busy work environments not only steal our time away, but it does steal our mental energy too, because with lots of activity and requests and different things that we do, we are switching from task to task, switching our focus in our brain, and that is exhausting for our brains. Whereas if we're working on one project all day, it's more straightforward for our brain. It might be hard to stay focused, but there isn't the same strain because we're not switching from one thing to the other. And that's why sometimes we get to the end of the day and we feel kind of frazzled, don't we? Stressed and a little bit overwhelmed. There's just so much happening, so many requests. And often it's because maybe we planned or intended to do a certain piece of work that we know is a key thing we should get done in this day. And we have to keep pushing it aside because other things are cropping up. And we're going to tease that out a little bit to see how we can maybe get on top of that and try and pull back a little bit of control in those environments. So our busy work environments do make it hard to be productive, and we're going to talk about what we actually mean by that right now. First of all, let's look at what it means to have that busy day. Sometimes this is the type of feedback I get from my clients that I work with. I spent all day working, but feel like I got nothing done. What does that mean if we're working all day, but we feel we got nothing done? So you can be thinking about that yourselves. It often means that maybe, there were certain things we wanted to get done, but we didn't get to those, even though we spent all day doing other things. And it feels like we're responding to requests from others. And maybe we feel like we're working on other people's priorities, but not progressing our own challenges and tasks and metrics and things that we need to produce. And often we're prioritizing that unplanned work over the work that maybe we plan to do. And there's really good reasons why we do this, and it's perfectly natural. It means that by and large, a lot of us are working in proactive mode for a significant part of the day, if not all of the day. And that means that we're reacting to what's coming at us. So we don't really have control over that because we just don't know what's going to come at us from day to day. There's actually been a lot of research done on this type of interrupted work mode. And this particular study was done in 2018, which is now coming up to being 6 years out of date. It was a really recent piece of research, but it's still relevant. And in fact, probably even more relevant now because with people working online and Teams and all the different devices and apps that we use, we probably have more interruptions throughout the day. But this research looked at the impact of that on our ability to get things done. And one of the key pieces that came out of this research was that if we're working away on something and in quite a deep level of focus, which is fantastic when we get that, it might be you're working on a report or something that you need to really, concentrate on and get into a focus. If you're interrupted by maybe a notification on your phone or from your email, etc., even if you switch to that email, look at it and say, that's not important, I'm going to stick to this report. The very action of having been interrupted, lost your focus. When you come back to the report, it can take us up to 23 minutes to regain that focus, that level we were at before the interruption. Even if we only switched for a few seconds and made the decision, I'm not going to get distracted with this, I'm going to stick to this task in hand, the interruption has actually had an impact on our focus. And when you think about it, it can take a while to get to that level of concentration. So when we do, we want to protect it and not have to try and regain it again. So that 23 minutes is a scary statistic, and really, obviously it's an average calculation, but it just really gives us that message that when we are doing maybe deep focused work, or when you want to get a task done, within an hour, and you want to stay focused on it, that we need to try and start thinking of how we can maybe minimize some of those interruptions that are around us. And we can come back to that again at a future point, because it's a big piece to study. So being productive, what does that mean? Obviously, if we can lock ourselves away in a room, we might increase our chance of being productive because we've less interruptions. But in general, what we mean by being productive versus being busy is that you make a plan, you have an intention to work on key things, your priority work, and you get the time to work on them. Now, that doesn't mean you get all day to do it. It may mean 1 hour, one precious hour to move something forward that is a really high priority piece, an important thing for you to deliver in your role. And that means we're being proactive when we're working like that. The rest of the day, we might be in that response reactive mode, and that's fine, as long as we can find times in our week to protect our time and get key things done. And that's what being productive is. And it gives us a greater sense of achievement because we feel we made a plan, we got the time, we stuck to our plan, and we delivered our work. And it may be that it is just an hour that you can carve out in the day. And it could be that you just get something started. So it's not like you maybe complete an entire big project, but get it started. And the next time you carve out an hour, you can progress it and so on and so on, and make gradual progress with some of those bigger tasks that maybe we're not getting time to do. That sense of achievement, there actually is a whole science behind it that I don't have time to go into today. But it is, it gives us a great sense of achievement. And the reason I think that underpins it is because we feel that we are in control, if even just for that planning period and the time then that we got to work on that piece of work. Whereas when we don't have that and we're in that constant response reactive mode, it brings us stress because we feel we're not in control, we're not on top of things. So, of course, we want to try and balance that proactive versus reactive way of working. And all of us will have lots of things we need to respond to and to help people out with, unplanned requests that crop up throughout the day. And of course, we need to respond to those requests. They're part of our role. The task needs to be done. Someone needs to do it. It might be something urgent that cropped up, and it may be somebody needs help. And of course, we want to help them. And I'm not suggesting we shouldn't. But to me, it's about getting the balance between the two. Because if we spend too much time on the reactive work, we maybe don't get time to do that priority work. And we may be spending time on things that are actually of lower value or lower priority for us in our role. It might be important for someone else, but maybe for us, it stops us delivering our key deliverables. And that can build in a worry, it can build dissatisfaction with the people we report into. It leads to a stress, and often we carry that stress with us outside work. We can't switch off, and that impacts our ability to refresh, relax, to sleep. And of course, that has an impact on the coming day. So we do need to try and get a little bit of balance. Now, this suggests 50-50, but of course, it may not be that. But to feel we have some level of time to work on our planned work as well as our unplanned work. In order to start achieving a little bit more balance in our work life, it is important to look at how we view our time, how we manage it, how we control it. And as I said, a lot of people I work with feel they don't have control over their time, that everybody else does. And that's really understandable. It is a really precious resource, probably the most precious resource we have. We have a finite amount, a fixed amount every day. And once we use it, we can't reuse it. We can't get it back. So we need to make sure that we're spending it on the right things and to start to understand the things that maybe aren't getting done, that are slipping. And thinking about our time, one of the key things to start to tune into is how we actually spend it. It's amazing. We kind of work, sometimes not automatically, but subconsciously, we're working on something. And then at the end of the day, you're thinking, well, where did the day go? Where did the afternoon go? I thought I had loads of time to get this done. And then you're like, oh, I spent too long on a certain task. And it's because we get engrossed, we get absorbed, we don't notice the time going. So starting to tune in to our time is really valuable because it helps us then to understand how we spend it and then make adjustments. And what we want to do is not to give it away too easily, so that if we are giving our time to something that maybe we didn't plan to do, that we make a decision, split-second decision. Is this the right use of my time, or would I be better off doing this task that I plan to do? What's the priority? What's needed first thing tomorrow morning? So making those quick decisions and constantly tuning into it. It helps to give us a feeling of control, and that calms everything down. So it means then our brains work more logically and we're more inclined to make better decisions. So achieving that balance, let's look at the equation. The first thing is we all have a certain list of things to do. And of course, we have a lot more than 3 items on our to-do list. In fact, most people I know, if they made a list of things to do, they have more work to do than the time to do it. So it is really important that we do look at prioritization. What's important right now? What can we push out to next month or next quarter? But looking at our work list, and then what time do we have available? So for everyone here, it'll be a different amount. You might work different hours each day. Some people might work regular 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 5 days a week. Other people will work part-time. You might be working for yourself, so you're splitting your time across lots of different activities and times as well. So to know the time that you have available, when you're in the office, when you might be working from home, looking at your time. And then the other part of the equation is it's not as simple as I have this work to do and I have this time to do it. As we said already, if we were all left to ourselves, it might be straightforward, but things get in the way, as we've already alluded to, like interruptions, etc. So tuning in, first of all, on our work, it's really important to be able to prioritize. Are you spending your time on the right things for your role? If not, why not? And it may be that you're getting asked to do loads of other things. And that's always worthwhile, really looking at, maybe making a note of it, speaking to someone about it. What's not getting done? If you're worried about something you're not getting to, and maybe it's a project, something maybe higher level, bigger challenge that you're not asked to do day to day, but there will come a time when you're reviewed and you mightn't have made a start on it. They're the things that can cause anxiety in the back of our mind. And we keep thinking, I'll make a start on that this week. But then all those day-to-day tasks seem much more compelling and urgent. And in a way, sometimes we can stay working in that reactive zone. It helps us stay busy and gives us maybe an opportunity to procrastinate against some of those bigger tasks that might be more challenging and harder to get started. So we need to start looking at this. What are my priorities? And you will have your priorities for the year and maybe for the quarter and the month, or you might be working on certain projects. Your priorities are clear. And maybe you plan on a team level within your work or your business. But it is important to always know, what are my priorities coming into each time zone? And then that helps us to start to identify if you're getting enough time to work on it. And then if not, but you're still very busy, what can you start to do less of? So are there things that are taking your time that are of lower value that maybe you can try and spend less time on? And that's obviously a big discussion and a webinar in itself. I just want to plant the idea in your head. For me, looking at planning and prioritization on a weekly level takes it down to a nice low level where we can really turn it into something practical. Because as I've said, you probably have annual plans, quarterly plans, even monthly plans. They're still a little bit too high level. If you think about when we make resolutions at the start of the year, we've got the whole year to do something. So you're saying in 2024, I'm going to get fit. So in the middle of, third week in January, you're thinking, I must do something about that resolution. If we don't feel motivated, we can say, sure, I have the whole year to do it. So bigger time frames are not good for getting focused. So it's good to take those bigger plans and distill them down and say, okay, if we want to do that in this entire year, what do we need to get done in the first quarter? And then looking at the first quarter, saying what needs to get done this month. And then each week, even if you don't do that higher level planning, at least each week have a look at, what do I need to get done this coming week? And today is Friday, and my tip is always to do a bit of planning on a Friday afternoon. Make it the last task that you do before you finish. Just 5 or 10 minutes. Look into the week ahead. What's coming up? What do I need to get done next week? What will make that week a success? So that when I get to this time next week and I look back at the week and say, yes, I identified 1, 2, 3 key things I wanted to do, and I got them all done, or I got 2 of them done. And that makes me feel really good, because if I hadn't made that plan, I mightn't have gotten any of them done because I would have stayed in a very reactive mode. So even just identifying up to 3 key things, and you're kind of saying, if all hell breaks loose, if it's a crazy week, at least if I try and get these 3 things done, or even get them started, make some progress, it provides a focus so that as the week progresses and things change, it'll still give you a reminder. Even if you get to Wednesday or Thursday, you haven't started any of these things that you identified, it'll remind you, okay, I really need to try and find some time before the end of the week. And you might say, it's been a crazy week, I might just get 1 of them done. But there's a greater chance that you will than if you haven't made that plan. It's like an intention, and it tunes your brain into it. And of course, to pick those weekly priorities, if you are your own and you work for yourself, you can decide yourself for your business. And it's always good to run things by other people. because it gets another perspective. You can talk to your team leader if you're working in a corporate environment, or whatever your situation is. Maybe you're studying, you might be a student, and maybe check with your timetable or your commitments or your deadlines, etc. What needs to be done in this coming week? And that provides a focus. So those priorities, as I say, it's not about making a massive plan that's unrealistic. If we've 10 things, they're not really prioritized. Take the top 3. And obviously, if you get those done, then you can come on to the next things on your list. So what I really advise is to maybe have a master list where everything is, or maybe a full list for the month. And then each week take off the top things that are now most relevant, the things that it makes sense to move forward. It's important then not to just identify them, but to try and find time to work on those tasks, because as we've already kind of established, if we don't make a plan, then our time will go on other things. So using the technique called time blocking is a really powerful productivity approach that a lot of people are using very frequently now to try and take some control of their schedule. So you want to block some time to work on those tasks. And this is starting to help you then get a little bit of balance in between your meetings, your emails, your requests from other people. So how do we do that time blocking? Well, if we look at our schedule for the coming week, because we are planning on Friday afternoon, wouldn't it be lovely if it was really empty like that and every day was clear, you had control over what happened the whole time? But of course, for most people, that's not reality. You've got lots of things already blocked in there. The day-to-day activities, the things that happen, the transactional tasks, requests, the meetings, recurring events. So the challenge is to try and find some space around that. So looking ahead, this is the advantage of maybe looking the Friday beforehand or first thing on Monday morning and saying, okay, I can spot some space there. There's a little bit of space on Monday afternoon. I'm going to put in an hour and I'll use that as a time block to work on my first priority. Or you might think I'm better off to do something first thing in the morning because the day just gets crazy from there on. Or sometimes it might make some sense to look at like a Friday afternoon, because you might observe the rhythms of your week. Things maybe ease off a little bit. There aren't as many emails or requests on a Friday afternoon. So maybe that's a good space to actually do some thinking and focused work. So if you put your time block in there, there's a greater chance that you will actually get to stick to it. So again, look at the rhythms of your week and what is most logical for you. And this helps you take control of your week, as I say, before everybody else does or before the week takes control of you. It gives you a little bit of say about what you're going to use at least 1 or 2 or maybe 3 hours on. If you're starting time blocking, I would say even just try and book 1 hour a week and see if you can make that work for you. And that gives you time scheduled in your diary that hopefully nobody else will book. And it gives you a reminder when the time block comes up. And then you can make a decision in the moment. I'd plan to work on this priority piece. Maybe something else has cropped up and you can make a decision which is the higher priority. And you're in a better position to do that. Whereas if you have no intention for that time, then if something else comes up, if somebody asks you to do something, it's harder to say or to negotiate your response because you can't really justify saying no. Whereas if you have a priority piece planned, you can open a conversation and say, of course, I can do that for you. I plan to work on this project between 9 and 10. I can get that back to you by 11. And, you know, that just sounds much more in control, on top of things, and assertive in a positive way. The benefits of time blocking, addition to what I've just said, it creates a mini deadline. If you've carved out an hour to work on a project, you're going to be quite focused to achieve it. It's motivating. You're going to maybe, you know, eliminate other distractions. You're going to be less likely to go off and get a coffee in the middle of it because you're probably thinking, I have an hour, I want to make progress with this. And then at the end of the hour, I'll go and get the coffee almost as a reward. So it helps to keep you on track. It helps to beat procrastination because in that hour, you've decided exactly what you're going to work on. And it helps you stay focused. And then, as I've already said, you can make better decisions as other requests crop up, which is the highest priority, which is the best use of your time in your role. And it's not really which is the thing I feel like doing. It's what's the best use of my time. Because while if you decide what I feel like doing might feel good in the moment, when you're on your way home that evening and you're thinking, oh, I never got anything done on that priority piece, it doesn't feel good. Whereas if you do, then you get that sense of achievement. So that was just a little insight into how to take a little bit control of your time to help you turn busy into productive. Moving from busy into feeling more productive and being on top of things, there are lots of things that I can talk to you about, lots of tips I can share, things I could train you in. And it is a step-by-step journey, really, to get to that feeling of productivity. So it's not something that you can do overnight. You need to develop good habits and ways of working. And there are lots of different areas. These are the 6 steps that I talk to people about. The first one is, really thinking about what it means for me in my role to be productive, what stops me being productive. So a little bit of analysis around that, looking at ways to take control of your time, and time blocking that I shared today is one way of doing that. So ways that we can, feel a little bit more in control, albeit still being available to others to do what we are responsible to do. Clear prioritization, there's a lot of work around that we can take a look at. I've given you a little insight into it today. And then tips around managing your schedule. So, taking a look at your schedule and considering the best way to organize your week, the best habits, the best routines to put in place. Then looking at your distractions, what gets in the way of all your plans, and what pulls things off track, and trying to minimize those things that distract you. So even identifying them first and then controlling them. And then taking all of that and looking at ways to build good habits and routines so that all of these good things that you want to do become automatic. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to think about doing it. It just becomes your way of working. So there's a lot in that. I am going to help you by sharing this template. It's a calendar for February. And I create these calendars in Excel, and it helps you to set out your goals for each week. And then it helps you to review at the end of each week when you're planning the following week and look at how productive you were, what worked, and what you can improve for the following week. So I'm going to share that template with you. And it's not even up on my website yet. The January one's on the website, so you're getting it ahead of everybody else. It'll be going up there next week. The website has lots of resources, so I do encourage you to go and check it out, and I'll share the link for it. So stay in touch. I will be running a regular webinar, possibly once a quarter, delving into more of these tips. But stay in touch on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You'll find me, Moira Dunn, and beproductive.ie is the website. There's loads of blogs there on all the topics that I just mentioned. You can subscribe, and I'm sharing that link with you as well, to subscribe to our newsletter that goes out about once a month with some resources and tips and just updates about what's happening. And then if you do want to take things a step further, we have a productivity course, which gives you an opportunity to work with me one-to-one, but it's also preceded by our online course, which has 6 modules that reflect the 6 steps that I've just spoken about. And I've developed that course to help people take that productivity journey to turn busy into productive, because you kind of need to really get into it and think it through and work through those 6 steps and use the resources and templates. And then it really makes sense to have a planning session with me. So I've developed the course that it's self-paced, so people can work through it in their own time. You sign up for it and you get access to the modules. And then when you've completed that, you book a session with me. And it helps me, I suppose, share my tips with more people, because otherwise my availability wouldn't allow me to do that. So created the program to give more people access to what I train. And if you are interested in it, this is just a little bit more detail. There's 6 steps. There's 6 videos, modules for each of those productivity steps. I cover exactly what I've just described. Prepared and recorded by me. There's templates and blogs to support each video and some activities from each step. And then there's a downloadable workbook that you can use to work through your productivity and to keep all your work together. There's a quiz, there's a certificate, and that one-to-one planning session when you've completed the course, which is included in the price, and it gives you access to me online. We do a planning session to take, what you've learned and adjust it then to your work environment. So it give you some tips around that. If you do want to pursue that further, it is available due to today's webinar at a very reduced price, and that is going to be available until into next week. And I'm sharing the link with you, so you can go straight through and purchase the course and access the modules, download the resources, and work away in your own time. So you put in an email, you create an account in there, and it means you can go in and out whenever you like and watch the modules, work on them, take some time between each module, because it is a step-by-step process. So it's good to think about each part and take your time developing these new habits. And I can really help you with that in your one-to-one session. So that's just a summary of the course. So if you do want to go ahead and book that, you're more than welcome. And then if you have any questions, of course, you can contact me. If you have any questions, as I said at the outset, just in general about productivity, I'd be delighted to help you with them. And of course, as I've said, do keep in touch, even if you don't want to take the course, but want to have regular updates, or subscribe to our email newsletter. Stay in touch on Facebook, because once we do another webinar, it'll go up there. But if you subscribe to our newsletter, of course, you'll hear as each new webinar comes along. And that brings me to the end of today's session. I hope you found it valuable. As I said, I'll share the resources in the link. And please do share the information with friends if you know anybody or colleagues who would benefit from a future session, or indeed who would like to sign up for that training course. So have a productive day, and I hope you have a great weekend, and I wish you a productive February.